I think it's time to begin. Good evening.
Oh no. John, you're coming in and out again. Uh-oh. And it's worse than Darth Vader this
Only
time.
George Gunder can hear you now.
The problem is he doesn't know that.
John?
He can't hear you.
How about if you signal? How about you go like this?
Yes.
That's good.
As you may have heard, I'm frozen.
Yes. Yes, you are
okay.
frozen.
We can do a hand too. I can send him a message.
No, he
Raise a
got it.
hand.
I think he got it, that he was frozen.
3 years into technology, we're failing big time tonight.
Oh, he is, and he's so good at this. Like, I don't know how he does it where it just,
Nick, I'm surprised you don't have a laptop at your house, wherever you are.
Okay, well, I keep freezing.
You're good now.
But I don't know, if everyone can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Perfectly
we
now.
are being recorded and we are also being broadcast on the news. Just to deal with the technicality, if for some reason we can't continue this evening because of an internet problem, everything is continued until next month's hearing. So there would be re-advertise, but hopefully we'll get through the three matters we have tonight. The first thing we need to do, however, is to deal with the minutes of the meeting from last month. Someone want to move to approve the minutes?
I'd make a motion, and just briefly while I have you, what do you want to do when you freeze again? Because you're freezing. It's very hard to hear your voice. Do you want to go on your cell phone? Do you want to drop the video?
So far, he's been clear.
Right now, the picture's good.
Right now, I think I'm okay. If I have a problem, I will go on my phone and come back. But
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve.
You should continue if I don't get back quickly.
Okay, make a motion to approve the minutes of the September meeting.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so the first matter for tonight is 164 Broad Meadow Road.
This is going to take a while.
Uh-oh.
I anticipated that, Daphne. So.
And he did say that if he wasn't coming clear, that he was going to refer to you.
It's Al Haig. It's not Hampton. It's Al Haig.
Al Tempton.
With attached three residents.
John, we can't hear a thing you're saying.
Use the hand signals.
You want to hop on the phone?
Jonathan, do you want to reread the?
Yes, I will.
Item, please.
And maybe John wants to hop onto the phone. So this is case number 164 Broad Meadow Road. Arthur and Valentina Elzon, the owners, have applied for special permit under section 6.12 to allow one additional garage on the lot. And it's associated with the demolition and reconstruction of a new single-family home and an attached three-car garage at 164 Broad Meadow Road and the single residence B district. Who is here for the applicant?
Hi, it's us, Valentina Elzon, and my husband, Arthur Elzon.
Oh, sorry to take that much time getting there. So why don't you tell us what you're looking to do and what your plans are?
Sure, absolutely. So just wanted to kind of begin by telling you a little bit about ourselves. We've been Needham residents since 2012. We absolutely love this town and we love this community. We have 3 kids who have gone through Broad Meadow or going to be. Our oldest daughter, Isla, just graduated from 5th grade at Broad Meadow, and our youngest, Alma, just started kindergarten at Broad Meadow. We are very lucky that we have found this lot so near the school. It's an oversized lot, and it's going to allow us to have a really big yard for our kids to play in. We're also really excited for them to be able to walk to school without crossing any major streets and without any adult supervision. And we're even thinking about maybe building a zip line for them to zip them right into school.
geez.
They're running late.
That'll be on the next application.
That our family situation is such that we're lucky to have my mother-in-law helping us out with the kids. She comes over frequently, and with this new house that we're building out, we're building it in such a way that we can accommodate her moving in with us. There's a first floor bedroom, and also we are seeking this application for the third garage bay so that she could park her car there once she's ready to move in with us. And even before then, she stays with us fairly frequently. So having a place for her to park, to get out of the snow in the winter, and just to have one more car off the street during pickup and drop off times on the Broad Meadow School. I think that will also help a little bit. We've been holding off construction for a few months. We wanted to make sure that we appear before this board to get the input from the board. And we also wanted to make sure that we were taking all of our neighbors' concerns into consideration. We've been kind of walking up and down the street, knocking on doors, getting to know our neighbors, talking to them about what we're going to be building, expressing to them, what our plans are and our landscape ideas. And we believe we got everyone's approval, or at least no one who's hopefully going to object to this plan. We have a few letters of support. I know Daphne, some came in a little bit late, so we're happy to share those on the screen if you would like. But yeah, we're here. We welcome any other input from the board, any questions, and thank you for your time and consideration.
John, are you back with us?
I hope so.
Okay, you can
So
take
just
over.
the planning board had no comment, the building commissioner had no objection. Likewise, fire, and public works, although the public works noted that will be a requirement when they apply for a building permit to comply with the storm drain requirements. And we did receive letters of support from 4 of your neighbors. Anyone on the board have a question?
No, I just wanted to add that the police had no comment as well.
Okay, thank you.
So if I can just thank you for those thoughtful remarks. I'm looking at a site plan. Why don't you just walk us through, John? It's a third garage. It looks like just tell us a little bit about it, about the lighting, that the lighting is not reflecting on the neighbor's property, that it appears to be a nice single family home conforming nicely. But just can you just walk us through quickly through what the outside might look like?
I'll turn it over. My husband is the builder actually on this home, on our home. He's a builder mostly in Newton, but he builds our house, is going to be building our house in Needham. So I'll turn it over to him to answer those questions.
Yeah, so as much as I try to refuse this client.
Are you comfortable with that builder?
I'm not comfortable with this client, but I don't think I'm much choice. So her demands were serious, and one of those demands was actually soffit lights over the garage, because she says the ones that we put up on our current house, well, they don't light up anything, which is good, but at the same time, they also they don't do anything for us. So we're going to have downlights in our soffit. So there's going to be an 18-inch soffit over the garage, and there will be lights pointing down. So nothing protruding to the neighbors or anyone else's yards or space. In fact, one of the things that we considered, and we do have a unique lot. It's very large for Broad Meadow. As part of the site plan, we decided to turn the garage so that it's L-shaped. So we have kind of a courtyard that doesn't have the garage face the street, which I know in Newton is not, it's actually very favorable. People don't want to see the garage as you're driving on the street. And so we did the same thing here. And it actually, it ended up working kind of nicely. I'll give my aging mom the ability to turn around without knocking over any of Valentina's plants. And hopefully any of the kids that she does come to help out. We also, Valentina and I worked on a few ideas for like the landscaping, the green space, and we have, I don't want to say a plan, but we kind of have an idea that we can share with you guys of what it's going to look like and where we want to plant some, just some trees or some shrubs that we've also shared with the neighbors that they've also appreciated and liked. Arborvitae's, green giants, and we can share those as well if we could share that on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't, unless there's a question, we don't need to do that.
Okay.
Thank you for giving a quick account as to what the house will look like and how you focused on the downward lighting.
So I'm looking at the rendering that you submitted with your application, and I think you're describing sort of the courtyard. It's that part of the house that's a shed roof. Is that one of the bays?
That is one of the bays, exactly. And again, we did that not because we needed the space above the garage or didn't need the space above the garage. We thought about the neighbors and how that third bay being a shed roof would actually not obstruct additional view from the neighbors. So again, we've owned this home since June. We haven't we just tore it down a few weeks ago. So we haven't really done anything because we wanted to take everyone and everything into consideration.
So I often say, and I've said it probably for about the last year, that when an applicant comes in looking for the request for a third bay prior to building the home, it's always appreciated because you can take a look at the whole context of where we are and what the neighbors, and you have support from your neighbors, which is always a positive thing. And besides that, I won't comment on whether we should actually require a special permit for a third car garage anymore, although I just commented. No further comments, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from the board?
All set, thanks.
Anybody from the public wanting to be heard on this, Daphne?
We have one hand raised. I will forward. I will promote them as a panelist. It's a Graham. Last name Graham.
I just had one question. There's I don't want to get into all the landscaping, but there's a big tree there, a big copper beech. Is that going to
Could
stay?
I have your name, please, and your address?
Sure. It's Graham Wells, 110 Bird Street.
Graham, great question, because part of the consideration in actually flipping the house, we originally had the garage on the right and we flipped it to the left because the beech tree is something not only my wife, but my kids will not let me touch, and I wouldn't touch it as well. It's one of the most beautiful trees on that entire street. So we did flip the garage so that we could salvage the tree and make sure that it's there.
That's my question. Great. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Anyone else, Daphne, asking to be heard?
There are no other hands raised. Oh, it looks like John's frozen again. Oh, nope, you unfroze, John. There are no other hands
I don't think
raised.
so. John's just being quiet.
Oh,
Someone want
No
to make a
hands
motion?
raised.
Someone want to make a motion?
Sure,
I'll make
happy
a
to
motion. I'll do this one. And hello, Graham. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. A motion to approve the application for a special permit for a third car garage for the in the construction of a new home at 164 Broad Meadow Road, subject only to the requirements of the bylaw that all your lighting not be visible and come off this property. And that's a requirement of the bylaw for the third car garage. And of course, for your building permit, you're going to have to comply with the town stormwater requirements.
Second,
Motion.
Howard?
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. Nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, case number 2, 84 Fair Oaks Park. Roger N. Squire III and Quinby Y. Squire owners applied to the Board of Appeals for a special permit under sections 1.4.3, 3.1.5, 4.2.1, and any other applicable sections of the bylaw to demolish an existing garage and to construct a new two-story detached garage with an ADU on the second floor. An open breezeway connecting the principal unit and the ADU shall also be constructed. Property is located at 84 Fair Oaks in the single residence B district. On this, who do we have?
So we're Studio Troika. We're the architects that are representing Roger and Quimby. My name is Michael Samra. I'm one of the principals at Studio Troika, and with me I have John Peterson.
I'm one of the project managers on the job, and then with us is Jill Hopkins.
And we'll go ahead and I think we should present.
Yes, you should describe
Okay,
what you want to do.
Great. I'm just going to let John bring it up, and I'll start the presentation, and then I'll let him continue through. Good. You ready?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So we've been working with Roger and Quimby for a number of years. We started working with Roger on one of his commercial projects, and then we actually did an addition to the rear of the house at 84 Fair Oaks several years ago to redo the kitchen, dining room, and living room. And because of some changes in their family, they asked us if they could build an ADU for one of the family members. So one of the things that we found on the site, if you can go to the site plan, John. So on the existing site as it is today, right now, there's an existing garage that falls within the side yard and rear setback. So it's a non-compliant garage. And what our proposal was, because we can't actually attach directly to the house without disturbing the house itself and getting rid of the yard. The next slide is we propose doing a garage that creates an interior courtyard between the house and the garage right there, and bringing the garage into compliance. And instead of it facing the road now, the face of the garage is actually perpendicular to the road as we go through there. But the idea was to create a little courtyard for their family so that the unit was as cohesive as possible, and using that breezeway piece to connect the garage and the house.
Can you just tell us a little about the breezeway? You said it's part of a garage?
The breezeway is to connect the garage and the ADU to the existing house at two levels. At the first floor level, at the ground level, it connects the garage to the main part of the house. And then on the second floor, it connects Roger's office to the ADU on the second floor. So you can access from both levels. One's covered and one's uncovered. And we can go through that a little bit more as we look at the drawings that we presented to you.
Do you want me to take over? Okay, so here we're looking at the existing dwelling unit, which where we did work was this kitchen here and a small bump out and then work up on the second floor. So here's a good shot at what this new courtyard is going to be. And the Squires are really good friends with their adjacent neighbors. And our landscape architect on board is actually going to help tie the two yards together with hardscaping and some other form of plantings to be determined, but it won't feel as disconnected. So we have our interior courtyard and then our garage that fits the 600 square foot requirement and our interior stair that goes up to the second floor. And if I go to the next, this is the blow up of that said floor plan. So keeping the garage to that requirement, as stated in the bylaws with our stair. And keeping going forward up is the overall blow up of the second floor and how it attaches. So this is Roger's office that we helped develop back in 2016. And what we're going to do is pop another door out here, and then we have this decking walkway all the way across that connects his office directly to the ADU on the other side of the courtyard. And so this is all covered by railings, which match character of the existing house, which we can show renderings of as we get further down the presentation. And a quick blow up of the living unit. So we have our interior stair, mudroom, bathroom, and basically a studio apartment. So this is where we're at here. We have a double slider door that goes out into this breezeway. As I said, connects back to Roger's office. And all of these windows play off of the character of the existing house, and everything looks down upon the courtyard, trying to connect one space to the other to the next. And then as we go into elevations, one of the things we really want to do is make sure that this secondary structure is complementary to the existing house. So we're taking characters from the existing house and applying it here, but also simplifying it. So it's not to compete with its hierarchical structure. So the primary unit has a lot of ornate trim, has a lot of really beautiful detailing, and we're taking nods of all of those pieces and applying it here. So instead of the shake siding that's there, what we're proposing is a nice clean nickel gap siding of a rough of the same exposure. So it kind of helps subdue the sight lines a bit. We're planning on using clean casement style windows with a real clean trim around the outsides to complement the sizing of the windows on the primary unit, but not to compete with the existing backband trim and the historic sills and the 5-piece trim that does exist. And we're also taking parts from the front porch of the corbelling and the brackets that are on that portico on the front of the house and applying it to an overhang that we're doing on the driveway side of the garage. And if we turn the corner, this is a view looking at the ADU from the courtyard. So these are all the units, the window units we're proposing. So we have 2 in the garage to bring some natural light in here. We have a window up in the stairwell for natural light there, 1 above the shower and 2 in the living area. And one thing that was important to the Squires was that they are big football fans and they foresee this courtyard being a really fun family space. So they want to do some kind of TV or projector or some kind of outdoor gathering space, kind of as an outdoor living room, because their kitchen and their living room does back straight to this. So they open up all their doors. They've essentially doubled their living room, which is really, really nice. As we keep trucking along the back side of the elevation. So here's the door that goes into the upper stair. Covered interior storage for the yard. So trash cans, canoes, storage, toys, whatever can live underneath of the stair, and it's all covered. And then we have another window up on that second floor for that stairwell again to bring in some more natural light. And then on the backside, we're trying to keep this as plain as possible. So we're close to the setback lines. We're not on it, we're close. So we want to make sure that this is completely fire protected. The eaves are covered. We're completely inbound of all of our setbacks, but we're also not trying to compete with the neighbors or have any type of privacy issues. And again, this will all be planted as we get further along with our landscape architect. So this will all have plantings. It won't just be bare. And a couple renderings that we have. So this is what it would look like from the driveway. So we have our covered portico here. The mudroom door, the existing house, is right back here. So you can see as they pull up and they pull into the garage, this is one single connection from interior to exterior. And what ties it all together is this colonnade with a sculpted railing that matches the character of the railings on the existing house above their, I guess we'll call it a great room. It's kind of like their library dining room area. It's really nice. And in our conversations with Daphne and Dave, we've decided that it makes a lot of sense to have planters and trellis and greenery that kind of help shroud the courtyard from the rest of the yard and the driveway and kind of really help tie these two pieces together so it doesn't quite feel as disconnected. And this is a view from that backside. So this is their main dining living room. As I was saying, they have these great French doors that will open up into the space, almost doubling, if not more, their active living space. And all of the sight lines go in and out and up and down. So this all feels connected. And this is one kind of closer to the street. And if requested, we actually have our full model open too, so we could walk you through the exterior, but we'll let you guys make the call if you'd like to see that or not. And that's where we're at for our presentation. So thank you.
All right, thank you. So the planning board is objecting to this on the basis that the ADU is not in the primary residential structure, it is located in a second detached structure. The building inspector is okay with what has been proposed. And I think that's the main issue we're going to have to deal with tonight. The Public Works notes that you need to comply with stormwater approval. Police have no problem. Health Department points out you need a demolition permit and you have to pay attention to pest control during the construction. So I think the first issue that we ought to address is the objection of the planning board. And the problem is that 3.15.3 says that an ADU will be located in a single family detached dwelling and not in an accessory building. As I see this issue, a number of times we've dealt with breezeways attaching garages, and we've taken the position that that makes it part of the house. That's an issue in the appeal we have with the Soapers, and I can remember several other times that we've concluded when the accessory building is attached, it all becomes one house. But why don't we discuss that issue first?
Could you please turn off your screen share?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So why don't we discuss that issue? How do the other board members see it?
Well, I'm glad you asked it, and I think it's an interesting point. I think the gentleman appears to be an architect, did a great job, and the renderings are great. I think it feels it's by design to be connected, and it does feel connected. So I feel good about this proposal.
John, I don't recall specifically the other situations you're referring to. I really agree with the planning board, which I would an odd thing to say. I read 315.2, I guess in three particular provisions, and 315.3 is I think clearly contemplating it being not attached by a breezeway, but really physically integrated into the main portion of the residence. I mean, including the reference to the interior door between the two units, which this obviously doesn't have. So I share their concern. I think there is an issue.
Other board members?
It's a beautiful project.
Yeah.
I think if the bylaw was a little bit more expansive, we wouldn't have this dilemma. I do think there's probably a way of doing it. It's probably going to eat up some of that open space to accommodate what the applicant is looking for. But it's a beautiful, beautiful job. But it looks like an accessory structure connected by a breezeway. And I'm willing to look at those other cases where we treated it as a breezeway as one structure. I'm not so sure I concur with that. They've done a really superb job trying to make it one structure. But I think there may be less attractive options for them to get the accessory unit in connected. So, I hear what the planning board is saying. I'm reading the bylaw, and I think we have to get to the fundamental issue: is an accessory structure connected by an elaborate breezeway? I don't believe the walkway underneath does anything. I think it's another way of connecting, but it's not part of the structure. Does that make it one structure? I think we have to think about that. I'm willing to ponder that. I'm willing to look at anything that we've done in the past. But right now, I don't know it meets the requirements of the bylaw. I want it to though, because it's very well done.
Well, I can think of 3 cases where we've basically have ruled that when something is attached, when a detached building is attached to the house, we consider it as part of the house. The most recent one was the Soapers up on Mark Lee Road, where it's on appeal. If you'll recall, if they detached it, the garage could then be 5 feet from the sideline and moved it away from the house. It could be 5 feet from the sideline, but because it was attached, we found it was all part of the house and it had to comply with the side setback. Another case was on Grosvenor Road, where somebody was rebuilding part of the property, and I know we treated the garage, which was attached, we treated all as one unit. And one which probably precedes all of you, I can remember at the corner of School and Webster Street, the old Red Cross building, Peter Barnes Brown owned that, and they had a handicapped child and wanted to attach the garage, which was only 5 feet from the sideline to the house. And we had to grant a variance to allow them to do it, because once it was attached, it had to comply with the side setback. So I can think of at least 3 cases, and there may be others, where we've taken the view that once something is attached, then it has to be considered part of the house. I don't know that totally answers the question, because there's also an intent here in the way the bylaw was written. I mean, there's also the issue is it's supposed to not detract from the look of a single family house. And I suppose that's also called into question by this. But it's tough because it's a beautiful project.
Mhm.
And as I said, the building inspector finds because it's attached that it's compliant with the bylaw.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to bring also that the building commissioner felt that the breezeway, there is only one connection between the ADU and the main house is through the breezeway. It is limited to that unit. There is no other purpose for the breezeway. And so he felt that would be like a door between them, because that's the doors that connect the two to the main house, to the accessory dwelling unit.
Mr. Legris, you haven't voiced an opinion. You want to say something about this?
This is a tough one because I too, like the rest of the board, think this is beautiful. I see everything there. Obviously, I'm the junior guy here, so I don't have the history besides the Soper matter that you were talking about, Mr. Chair. But, you know, it's clear that 315-3A starts with the ADU shall be located in the single family detached dwelling and not in an accessory building. So I see both sides. If you're telling me the precedent overall is that an accessory building attached or an accessory building to be constructed that will be attached qualifies as being in, I can see that interpretation as well. But I am torn, and I'm glad I won't be voting on this one today.
John, in the ones you're talking about, and what was the nature of the attachment? I mean, was it an enclosed structure? Was it open like this? Was it a pergola? What was it? Do you recall?
Say again?
In the cases that you're talking about in the past, what was the nature of the attachment between the accessory building and the main structure? Was it fully enclosed? Was it open like this?
Grosvenor was completely open.
Mm-hmm. And how long was the
recently? Was a recent project?
Oh, no, the distance. How far apart were the buildings?
I don't recall.
So that's where I'm sort of getting at. I don't remember, it's sort of the negative. We found that you had to do something because they were connected rather than they're within. I'd like to see what those decisions look like, maybe take a look at the properties and sort of understand what we've done in the past. And then the other thing I'd like to do is take another look at your presentation and your rendering before we vote or don't vote or continue or whatever, just so I can understand and look at it again.
George Junta has his hand raised.
Right, so if I may, I think at least two of the cases that John was referencing were cases that I handled. And I think on both of them, the distance between the detached garage and the house was about 10 feet or so. The one on the corner of Webster and I can't remember the cross street there. That one might have been a little less, but I know there's been that one, the one at Grosvenor, there's another one as well, where it was generally about a 10-foot or an 8-foot separation between the two structures. And the issue in those cases was always a matter of setback and what setback applied. And in those cases, it was determined that because of the attachment, because of the breezeway connecting the garage to the main body of the house, it was all treated as one structure for setback purposes. So, those cases, it was always somebody was doing an addition, and the question was therefore, the houses generally were non-conforming if you considered it all as one structure. And in one of the cases, it was a matter of connecting the two together and getting relief based on that. But I think part of the question in this one is when the ADU requirement was adopted, was there something different intended? And I have to say, I've worked with the ADU provision, and to me, the language could be a little bit more clear, I think. But I think if you look at the prior cases, certainly the garage physically attached by a breezeway makes it part of the house. It's all one structure. And it's that for setback purposes. So I guess the only question, you find it as one structure for one purpose and not one structure for another purpose.
So yes, I think you probably can. Thank you, George, for the insight on that. If we could go back to the rendering, I'd like to take a look at that. If you want to share and focus in on the breezeway side of that.
Would it make sense if we go to the walkthrough and walk you through from the street? Because then we can choose whatever view you want instead of being in a static view.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay, great. And before we go any further, I do have to, we work in a lot of different towns in Massachusetts, and I have to say how fantastic it was that both Daphne and Dave were available to us, and we've talked with them throughout this entire process. I know we're doing something that's slightly, out of the ordinary. When we're asked to design something for our clients, we have to make sure that not only are we trying to comply with all the zoning and the applicable laws of the town, but also to make sure that we're adding value to the specific lot and to this house, right? And to the things around there. And not to take away from the light and air and breeze that is in their existing kitchen and dining room that we just completed, like I said, less than several years ago. We really do want this to be connected, and it's only because of a family requirement where they want to have this connection with, the family member, but allows for some independent living as well. So we'll walk through this a little bit more, and I think it's important to start from the street like we did, so you can see that from the street level, you can't see that it's, even the addition is there. And as you get further down, I'm just going to ask John to turn to the right here, because here's the existing, keep going down further, John. There's the existing door that they use primarily when they park in the driveway. This is the family entrance, not, the visitor entrance that they use. And that would be the primary connector point right here to the ADU in the garage. And we can go into the courtyard. And then Mr. Tamkin, I'll sort of allow you to say where you'd like us to walk to next, or if what view would be more helpful to look at.
This is all very helpful. Thank you. Just keep on.
Okay. So John, maybe
if you walk through the courtyard, go to the other side of the addition.
Great. And if you want, we can walk inside as well if you want to see what things look like inside.
So with the garage there, there's no access to stairs to get to the unit above. You have to go upstairs or in the rear, correct?
There are two connection points of those things. So with it, if you drive into the garage, you can go from the garage directly up through the interior stair, or you could walk through the courtyard through the interior stair, or from the existing house through the office across the walkway that they consider, I think they called it Squire Landing or Squire Crossing. Squire Crossing, that will take you from Roger's office into the ADU up above.
Is there a means of egress from the garage in the event the garage door is not operating? Is there a side door?
Yes.
It's in the back.
It's in the back.
Can you show us that?
Yes.
So what I was suggesting is that the walkway out of the door that the family used, if there was a doorway directly into the unit, that's a different story. You get the garage. Now you have to go through the courtyard through the back. So your day-to-day access to the unit is through the owner's office, which seems a little strange to me as well.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. We could have access from the garage to the breezeway. We could move that to the other side. That wouldn't be a big change at all. So we could have a man door going out the front as well, if that's what you're getting to.
Well, it's not just connected.
Yes.
That connects it more, in my opinion.
Yes.
What about the thing just resonates in my head? You're going through the gentleman's office for the family member to walk trace to the guy's office to get to their home. Sounds a little strange, rather than a foyer or something like that.
Yeah, it's for his son. You know, the office is basically, it's not the formal office in the sense that it's like going to a business office. It's basically a nice connection to the second floor.
Okay, maybe we can go inside and take a look at that.
Okay.
I know Peter wants to take a peek inside anyway.
This is great. Nice visual.
Yeah, this is very cool.
It is. If I could play video games, I could control this.
And that's why John is really good at video games and he's really good at controlling this. You don't want me walking you through. Everyone will be getting seasick right now.
The plains of Needham look beautiful. So where's that doorway into that? If we could just turn around.
When you walk through the door, if you continue through the other door to your left, so if we walk around 180 degrees, that's the door right there. And that's where these are all the bedrooms are right there. So as you just come in right there.
How do you get downstairs?
If you go to that right there, the stairs are right there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's actually built upside, yeah.
Very, very well done design. And let's just go back into the unit one more time. Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear, we know that if this is not an ADU, we can build an addition by right here, right? It was really important for us because we don't try and just work in one town once and try and like just get through the process. It was really important that we described what the client's intent was and to show this is discrete, even though we're not showing a discrete bedroom. It's intended to be a dwelling unit for their son. So but we also wanted him to feel like it was a cool space, and it was like a loft space where he has a pull down bed and he doesn't feel like he's just in a small little cramped bedroom. So yeah, it's a small apartment.
Where is this pull down bed?
Right behind us, right there. There's a Murphy bed right there.
Nice.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't know if are we going to try to decide this tonight, or do you want to continue it?
One last question. I didn't ask it when you were given the tour. What is the distance between the main unit and the addition?
26 feet,
26?
I think so.
Pretty big.
Sounds right.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the thing, John, with the door in the back of the garage, you're walking like 50, 60 feet to get from one to the other.
It impacts the connection.
Yeah.
It's either going to impact the connection or it's going to impact the yard, right? And it's going to make that space really unlivable, right? As we break it up in there. To put, I'll just play devil's advocate. If we put the ADU directly next to the unit, the existing house, we're going to block all the light that's coming into the addition that we just built for their kitchen, and that will do really bad things to that. We set it up specifically to have the best relationship to the yard, so we actually can create some yard space for them and then develop that connection as much as possible. I completely agree with having the door in the front. That makes a lot more sense, and we can do that. I don't, that's not a big change at all. And I think that just from a functional standpoint, that makes a ton of sense, right? So it's like, yeah, 100%, that's an easy thing to do. But that space is really, even 26 feet, if the yard were bigger, we'd probably try and make it bigger, right? If we had more room on the setback. Just because having a little bit, 26 feet isn't a lot of space in between the two buildings.
Well, again, I mean, I think it's a very, very beautifully designed project, and I understand all the reasons what you're doing, but I think we have to struggle with the bylaw, not whether we like it. And the bylaw says that the ADU shall be located in the single-family detached dwelling and not in an accessory building. As I sat here thinking about it, they didn't say accessory structure, but not an accessory building. Obviously, the planning board who wrote this interprets this as being inconsistent with what they had in mind when they approved ADUs. I don't know. Mr. Tampkin, do you want to continue this to consider those cases that I mentioned? Or?
I think that's something that would allow me to reach the same determination that prior boards did, that a structure attached by a breezeway is a single structure. And that may be a way of accommodating the applicant and what the building inspector has suggested, we have to make a determination that this is in compliance with the bylaw, and it's an apartment in a single-family detached dwelling. That is second self-contained. So I think it could help if we could read those 3 decisions and maybe take a look at those properties and sort of come back in a month and determine it, because it's either it fits or it doesn't fit. You've done a great job, and I understand what the homeowner wants to do. And I'm very supportive of it. And you know, we talked about maybe what we're trying to promote with ADUs need some refinement to allow something like this. But then again, the other thing is it looks like it could be just 2 structures and it's not contained in one. So where's the section of the reference that you talked about, John, on not to?
Well, it's unfortunately, I don't know that it's in the printed bylaw. You have to get the ADU.
Yeah,
regulation.
it's 3.15.3A.
Okay. And then there's also other language
Right.
that
So it's in not in an accessory building. So the question is this accessory or is this not accessory? So did the breezeway connect it? You know, you're smart architects, you know what you're doing here.
Well, we believed in working with, you know, both Dave and Daphne that we were making a connection to be one uniform structure, right? That was our intent. So it wasn't like we were just trying to put a breezeway in there. And I mean,
No, I'm not suggesting that.
Full disclosure, the breezeway is like in a very expensive connection as we're getting through this.
It's an incredibly elaborate, beautiful breezeway.
Yeah, you know, John, I mean, also in 315.2A, there's a sentence, the ADU shall be subordinate in size to the principal dwelling unit, which we've looked at before, and shall be constructed to maintain the appearance and essential character of the single family dwelling. You know, I agree with you. I'd like to see those other decisions because I don't recall them off the top of my head, but I still continue. And again, I want to also echo, this is a beautifully designed project. I just still am not sure that it fits in the intent of the ADU language, but I'd like to see the other decisions.
Okay, why don't we run through? I have my checklist, but I'd like to just run through to make sure there are no other issues. And then if this is the only one, the ADU must be subordinate in size to the principal dwelling, and I think it is. It's 750 square feet compared to a very large building. It must have self-contained living, sleeping, cooking, and eating space, which it does. It has to maintain the appearance and essential characteristics of a single-family house, which I think is up in the air. One unit will be owner-occupied, which I take it the house will be and the son will be. The other has to be occupied by a member of the family, which it will be. Total occupancy can't exceed 5 people, which it won't. Size has to be under 850 feet, which it is. It must be attached to the principal dwelling. There has to be a parking space for the ADU and for the principal dwelling. Could the architects address the parking? I take it that there's plenty of space. There's 2 in the garage, and then I guess there's a driveway. So I guess I answered my own question.
Yeah, you did.
There has to be adequate sewage and drainage. Is this connected to the town sewer?
Yes.
There have to be 2 entrances, and I guess we do one along the breezeway and one through the garage. There has to be an interior doorway between the units. That I think is also a problem here. That's my notes, but I was going to try to look to see, go back to the bylaw. supposed to be, you know, that implies that it's supposed to be in one building.
315-3G, Mr. Chair.
Yes, right. All stairways have to be enclosed, which it is. And the special permit does not transfer with ownership of the property. It has to be renewed. So I don't think there are any other issues. I mean, it's whether it has to be in the main building and whether we have an interior door and whether this still looks like a single family home after it's done, I think are the issues.
Well, looking at those decisions is only going to tell us whether it's one structure, whether we're comfortable that. Then we make it.
I mean, those structures aren't going to discuss it quite in those terms. But when something was attached, we came to the conclusion it had to comply with the side setback requirements for a principal dwelling, as opposed to the 5-foot requirement for an accessory structure. That's what those other decisions do.
So John, if I understand you correctly, so those other decisions are pointing toward essentially a form of combining accessory to a building requires it to be treated as one. Similarly here, as they've connected the detached to the primary should be treated as one. That seems to be the take from those cases?
Yeah, well, yes, I mean, I think that's the building inspector's view.
Well, you know, I guess that therefore that allows us to proceed and find compliance. I think it's a unanimous, this is a wonderful design. It's taking advantage of the sun, allowing it through, allowing the courtyard to be used. You know, a very thoughtful design here. That to me, that gives me comfort that this is passable, this is doable.
Mr. Tamkin, do I take it you feel you still would like to continue and think about?
Well, we could just vote on it tonight. I mean, I don't think I'm there because you're basically saying that the breezeway is the door. Yep. And I'm not so sure I buy that.
Right. Well,
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
In the prior cases, were the structures pre-existing or were they being constructed? In this case, it already existed, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
No, they're going to build a new garage.
They were going to build a new garage as well?
Yeah, they're building a new garage connected by a breezeway.
Got it.
And we thought that made it all part of the house and it had to comply with the side setback requirement.
Okay, what about the others that you remember?
If they took the breezeway away and separated it by 10 feet from the house, then it could be an accessory dwelling. It would have to be only 5 feet. And they didn't want to make that change.
Got it.
So we denied their permit, and that's on appeal. Well, Mr. Tamkin, you want to move to continue this then?
Well, I'm not so sure continuing it to take a look at these cases to determine that it's one structure resolves the other two components of the appearance and the interior door. And you have a bylaw that says it has to be contained in a single family detached dwelling and not an accessory building. So we look at it, it looks like an accessory building and now it's attached by a breezeway. Okay, so past precedent maybe states that if it's attached, it's one structure. But why did they write a bylaw particularly this way if that's our past precedent? And then where's the interior doorway? Then you have to say a breezeway is an interior doorway. I don't think you meet that. I mean, I could be convinced you are, but someone has to give me something more than that. Where are breezeways treated as doorways? How do you have this 26-foot span in its doorway? I don't want to get silly, but a rope bridge or it's not connected, or it is one. And I'm not sure I'm there. I don't know if the decisions, so maybe we just want to take a vote on it. And I'd like to hear, I heard Howard and John, what do you think? I mean, I'm very supportive of providing this for our citizens. But we have a bylaw that maybe needs some work.
John, if I may, an interior door shall be provided between each living unit as a means of access for purposes of emergency response. So, my reading of that intent for the interior door is for caregivers, elderly. I think that the intent, again, I wasn't there and I'm the junior guy here, but from what I can see, I don't think the interior door is like a fatal flaw here. I think it's more of a convenience measure in the bylaw.
Good. I think you're right.
Sorry to cut you off, Mr. Chair.
No.
It was a good point.
So, John, do you want to put this to a vote? Well, we ought to go on and see if there are any members of the public who want to be heard on this.
There are no hands raised among the attendees.
Okay.
Let me say one last thing. I think I'm inclined to give great deference to the building commissioner, who has analyzed this project and he's in charge of enforcing this bylaw. That said, we have one decision to make then, really, is it a single structure? And I think they've done a magnificent job of trying to. And so I think we voted based upon that. I don't think the precedent of these other cases are going to give much. Let's take it for granted that we have 3 cases that we know about where a accessory structure was attached of a much shorter distance and it was treated as a single structure. So if you went 100 feet, would it be one single structure? I'd say probably not. So what's the breakdown? So I'm willing to vote on it, or we continue it and we can look at these cases and we can consider it a little bit more.
Okay, if you're ready to vote on it.
Well, actually, can I just raise something? In looking at the agenda, the language that's been used, it's actually a little troubling. It says essentially that it's a special permit to build an ADU. So to demolish an existing garage and construction of a new 2-story garage with an ADU. It seems like that's inconsistent with what we're saying here, is that this is actually attached.
Well, Daphne makes up the thing that goes in the agenda and in the newspaper. So I don't think that should be binding in our decision.
Let's just make a decision to vote on it now or continue it.
If you'd like to vote on it, make a motion, please.
Anybody else? Or I'll make a motion to close the meeting and vote on the application.
Okay, well, no, just make a motion to approve.
I can't make that motion. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the applicant's, I'll read the application, excuse me. Motion to approve a special permit under 143-315-421 to demolish an existing garage and construction of a new 2-story garage with an ADU on the 2nd floor with an open breezeway connecting the principal unit and ADU as shown on the plans and renderings and video presentation filed with the application at 84 Fair Oaks Park in the single residence SRB district, with all normal conditions, requirements for an ADU under the bylaw and our prior decisions. You want to add to those, John, anything?
Well, yeah, just to warn the applicant, it's been our practice to add a provision that will read pretty much as follows. Upon written request of the building commissioner, the owner will provide evidence that the ADU and principal dwelling are being occupied in accordance with the bylaw. In the event the owner fails to provide such evidence to the building commissioner within 30 days of a written request, the building commissioner may revoke the special permit for the ADU. Any such revocation may be appealed to the ZBA in accordance with the procedures for the appeal of other decisions of the building commissioner. So we would intend to add that in our decision.
And want to add one other thing, and we should hand out that additional things the next time person's making a motion on an ADU, so we all have it. I would also, the applicant architects were supportive of relocating the door to the garage to the front of the structure, so it is connected logically to the walkway, correct? So the applicant will make that change and submit plans showing that modification. So that would be my motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion, or do you want to proceed to a vote?
I have nothing else to comment on.
Okay, why don't we take a vote? All in favor?
Yes, in favor.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor. Congratulations.
All right, it's approved.
Thank you for a thoughtful presentation, and my fellow board members for an analysis of a bylaw that probably needs a little work. And without the historical background of our chairman, we wouldn't have had those 3 cases pop up where we have done something similar in the past, and with the building inspectors' support of it. And it's a wonderful project, and hopefully the family can be very happy.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
and that's basically, I'm supporting the building commissioner. I think he's the one who has to interpret this, and you know, whatever the planning board may have intended, they did do a good job of expressing it, and I'm supportive of what the building commissioner does.
Yeah, and I also just want to add how thankful we are, and we don't say this lightly. Like I said, we work in a lot of different towns. This process I feel was very fair, and the availability that Daphne and Dave made to us during this process was amazing. This wasn't just a 15-minute long meeting. These were hour-long meetings that we sat down and went through things and tried to be as careful and thoughtful as possible with this. So thank you very much for that.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulate the homeowners.
Congratulations.
So much.
All right, so we're going to move the third and final case, 150 Gould Street. Board and Fine Wines of Needham Inc. applicant applied to the Board of Appeals seeking relief for the following. A special permit amendment under section 3.2.1 for a retail establishment serving the general public and containing 5,750 or more gross square feet of floor area. B, a special permit pursuant to section 3.2.1 for a lawful purpose or special use not enumerated elsewhere in the zoning bylaw. And C, a special permit pursuant to section 3.2.1 for more than one non-residential use on a lot. D, a special permit pursuant to 5.1.1.5, 5.1.2, 5.1.3 for waivers, strict adherence with parking and parking plan and design requirements, and any other applicable section of the bylaw. This application is in connection with the applicant's planned use of one half of the building for its logistic and retail distribution and planning facility. On this, I know we have Mr. Junta, and we're all somewhat familiar with the building. But Mr. Junta?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George Junta Jr. appearing on behalf of the applicant. And Daphne, if I could ask you to maybe move over David Gordon and Rob Mueller, who are both in the public section.
Okay, and who's the Rob Mueller and, oh, Dave?
Gordon. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
Wonder what,
So while Daphne's doing that, I'll say David Gordon is the manager, the sort of the real person behind the entity. He's the one sort of spearheading this. And Rob Mueller, some of you should be familiar with, is been with Baker's for a long time and is continuing on at Baker's after the transfer of the business. All right, so let me start off with some background here. So we're talking about the property at 150 Gould Street. It is parcel 10 on map 79 in the industrial 1 zoning district, a sub-industrial zoning district. It's a property that has an existing 1-story building that was built in 1969. It is currently occupied from zoning perspective entirely by Baker's Best. And it's got a little bit of history, and I'll sort of try and go through it quite quickly. Back in 2003, the building became vacant. Before that, it was used for office purposes. And in 2003, United Refrigeration, which was an HVAC supply company, came before the board and got special permits for retail more than 5,750 square feet, more than 1 non-residential use, and parking waivers to go in and occupy 1/2 of the building. United's use was basically they had a warehouse area in the back. They would get calls for parts, and they had delivery trucks that would then take the parts and deliver them to job sites. They also had an accessory retail area where people would come in, primarily workmen would come in and purchase parts at the counter. But that was a smaller accessory thing, and their primary thing was the warehouse part. Then in 2005, the adjacent space, which had remained vacant, was occupied by Exhibit Source, which was a company that handled different presentations and things like that, basically an office use. They were only in briefly. That was just a short-term thing for them. And in 2006, Baker's Best came in. And this is, I think, most of the members of the board, well, maybe not most, but some of the members of the board were on at that point. And Baker's Best, this was when they had moved over from their location in Newton. They were in Newton Highlands for many years, and they set up their facility here at 150 Gould Street as a commercial catering and commissary to basically produce their food, and which they then delivered out to customers. From 2006 through 2019, Baker's continued to operate in 1/2 of the space, 1/2 of the building, and they did quite well. Their business grew. And United Refrigeration then left, and Baker's found that it could use some additional space because of the growth in its business, the number of employees it had. Basically, everybody was kind of bumping elbows inside their space. So they just needed some more room. So they came before the board in 2019 and amended the permit to essentially take over the entire building. No change to the operation was proposed, but it was to gain, as I said, to gain some space, operating space, warehouse space, a large employee break room, an additional office space, which had already been subletting from United Refrigeration because they were running out of room in their the other half of the building. Then, unfortunately, COVID hit, and so Baker's never really took over in full the entire building. As the board's aware, COVID did a number on Baker's business, dropping it down by as much as 80%. So Baker's ended up doing a takeout under the program that was initiated by the select board, and then because they wanted to keep that going, looking at the likelihood that the business wouldn't pick up for a significant amount of time, they came before the board in 2020 and received a special permit for takeout. Prior to that, they did not do any takeout. All their product that they essentially manufactured was delivered. Nobody came into the site. When the board approved the takeout in 2020, it imposed a 2-year limitation on the permit. And then last month, we came back in to extend that, and the board granted an extension for 18 months. So at least for the next 18 months, the takeout provision is still in place. So that's sort of a little bit of background on the building and the property. And one thing to mention, so when this application was filed and during the previous hearings, there have been conversations or comments made with respect to Gordon's intending to buy the building. Well, as of the end of September, Gordon's was successful in acquiring the building. So right now, Gordon's essentially owns the property. It's held under a different entity, but it's the same real parties and interest. So they control the property. And that's important because as we get down the road, the analysis, they control the parking and the overall use of the property. So now, in 2019, Baker's was supposed to take over the building. The pandemic hit. Their business suffered a catastrophic collapse essentially in terms of volume. And they started casting around what were they going to do. Around the same time, Gordon's was continuing their efforts that they had already started to come into Needham to open up this distribution facility, and ended up connecting with Baker's and reached an agreement whereby Gordon's was going to sublease essentially the former United refrigeration space. So the one half of the building that Baker's was going to expand into, Gordon's was going to sublease. They struck that deal. Gordon's went to the select board seeking a liquor permit because as a part of this, it's the sale of liquor. So you need a liquor permit with that. And in May of 2021, that permit was granted. Now, as I said, originally it was a sublease, but as things progressed, as Baker's business sort of limped along, as Gordon's viewpoint on the business progressed, everything kind of changed. And instead of it just being Gordon's subleasing the former United refrigeration space, it became Gordon's acquiring the property and Gordon's acquiring Baker's business. So as I indicated, Gordon's now owns the property, and in the next 30 to 60 days, they are anticipating closing on Baker's business. So at the end of everything, assuming all goes well this evening, it will be basically Gordon's owning the entire property or owning both businesses in the building, which again, when we get to the analysis, I'll explain that that's a good thing, both for Gordon's and for the town. Now, Gordon's, for those of you that are not familiar with Gordon's, it is a full service liquor store that was founded in Waltham back in 1934, I believe it was. They have therefore a long history in retail, a long history in the state. They started with one location in Waltham. They later opened a second location in Waltham, a location in Watertown, and a location in Newton. So right now they operate 4 retail locations. They also do business online, as a lot of liquor stores have shifted as a result of COVID. And being a pioneering business, they see this as a sort of a way forward. I say being a pioneering business because back in the day, they were actually started one of the first newsletters with respect to fine wine. So they've always been a bit of a forward-looking company, and that continues with this application, this concept. This, as indicated, will be a logistics and retail distribution and planning facility. What the heck is that? Half of it is pretty straightforward. The retail distribution, basically there is 7,500 square feet of warehouse space in the building. That will be storage for product. Orders will come in, via internet or phone, and then they'll be packaged up, and then they will be shipped out with delivery vans, and they will get delivered to customers. So one thing with this, I want to make it abundantly clear. This will not be a standard liquor store. This will not be a retail location where people will be coming in and buying wine or spirits or beer. This is completely different. So distribution, warehouse and back, gets packaged up, the vans leave. Vans will be leaving generally around 9:30 in the morning, 6 days a week. They'll come back around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll basically be gone, loaded up. The deliveries will be planned so they don't have to keep coming back and forth. So it's basically the vans are out for the day. Now, the rest of it, the planning facility, as a part of their service, Gordon's works with people to curate beverage menus for different events, big dinners, corporate events, educational events. And as a part of that, they have to have discussions with people as to what would be appropriate selections based on what food's being served or what the event is. And so this is where the planning facility comes into place. So this is primarily the front roughly quarter of the space consists of roughly just under 3,000 square feet of area. And it is divided into several offices, a storage area kind of smack in the middle, and a small retail area of 624 square feet right in the front. Now, what will happen is some people will maybe have consultations via the phone, maybe via Zoom, Skype, whatever. But some people will come in person and they will have consultations in person. In addition, Some customers will come in and do tastings and purchase small amounts to try at home based on the recommendations of Gordon's staff. That's what the 624 square feet is for. It will be customers coming in by appointment only to do tastings and to discuss options with respect to beverage selection. Again, nothing at all like a regular retail location. And the storage area will supplement both the front of house as well as the warehouse space in back. Hours of operation generally will be 9 a.m.
Can I ask, so I don't forget real quick, interrupt you for a minute. What's the retail for?
So the retail is for let's say somebody's doing a dinner, right? And they are trying to decide on what wines they want to have with the dinner. They can come in, they can taste, they can buy bottles of wine to then either do some tasting in the shop or buy the bottles and then take them home and taste, and then evaluate which one they want to actually go with. So although it's very small amount of sales, it's still technically retail. And so that portion is a retail area. If you looked at the floor plan, the proposed floor plan, it's a very small space. It says it's only 624 square feet.
So George, I guess the so-called retail location, the retail aspect use is confined only to the 624 square feet?
Yes, correct. Right. And again, so we're talking about only people coming in by appointment. So they're coming in by appointment to have a consultation, and then say they come in, they do the consultation, and a Gordon staff member recommends, well, we think, you probably should go with one of these 6 wines. Well, maybe they buy 2 or 3, or maybe all 6 to go home and try. And that's basically what the retail component is for. It's not for the general public to come in. Again, no, it's not open sort of general. You have to have an appointment to come in. So it's not like a regular store in that way.
Yeah,
But George, if we want to make an appointment to sample wines, can we do that?
Just to generally sample the wines?
Sure.
I don't believe so. I'll let
in a private room. In other words, how do you make an appointment? I mean, to sample wines in that small room? Is that something?
Anybody can make an appointment to come in and meet with a staff member and taste wine and buy wine.
George, can I ask a question, because I've been a little confused about this. One of the permits you're looking for is the permit for a retail establishment serving the general public containing 5,750 or more gross square feet of floor area, which is an awful lot more than the 624.
Yes, it is. And this is so because Gordon's is occupying the entire half of the building, technically they're occupying square feet. So even though they're only using 624 square feet for retail, they fall under that special permit category. In exactly the same way that United Refrigeration had to get that same permit, even though their retail area was limited to, I think it was 2,500 square feet, give or take. It's the same kind of a thing. Because they're occupying the whole thing, you then need that special permit.
Okay, but limited to 624 square feet in any decision.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm not. It was important.
All right, so going back to the hours of operation are generally going to be 9 a.m. To 6 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Obviously, the 6 p.m. that might push a little bit later, but those are the general hours. And there will be between 4 to 6 employees maximum on site at any given time. During the day, obviously the delivery drivers will come in on top of that, either carpool or park, and then take the vans out and then take the vans back. So there's sort of 4, when we get to parking, there's 4 spots that go with that. The expectation is that there will be probably between 4 to 6, maybe customers max at any given time. So again, this is a small scale kind of boutique type of a thing. This is not get as many people in, sell as much product, and get them out. Basically, that aspect of the business is you do it via phone or internet, and then it gets delivered right to your door. So the volume is sort of handled differently. This is more the customer-focused consultation service. All right, so now let's talk about parking, because this is really kind of the biggest concern I think that has come up on this property over the years. And with that, you know, a little background. Back in 2003, when United Refrigeration went in, we did a parking calculation, and based on the prior use of the property as office, the property required 69 parking spaces. When Baker's Best went in the first time, there was a determination made that it was, you know, basically that it was, I think, 60 parking spaces were required. Or then in 2019, it was possibly up to 71 that were required, but 60 was more than adequate based on Baker's own knowledge of their business. And I'm going to sort of jump ahead and then come back. In this case, when you run the calculations, you come up with a maximum parking demand of 57 spaces because of the changes to Baker's business and the use of the Gordon's portion of the building. There are currently 33 parking spaces on site. Baker's has an additional 29 spaces that they are required to keep as a part of their permit. So that's a total of 62 parking spaces. So there is actually, you know, 5 spaces more available than required when you're in the calculations. But
can I just stop you for a second regarding the 29 lease spaces? That area has become very active. I guess there's been a new developer who's taken over quite a few of the buildings, and looks like they're increasing the intensity, having more people. So tell us a little bit about the 29 lease spaces that the applicant has. What's the nature of that arrangement offsite?
Sure. So it's those 29 spaces are at the adjacent property, and those are part of a existing lease that continues on. As I said, it's part of the Baker's. It's a requirement of the Baker's decision, so it's part of, they have to keep that in place in order to keep operating. But obviously, they also need the spaces in order to meet their own needs. But it's the property next door to the left. I believe it's.
Well, yeah, sure. I'm just wondering, is it a written lease? Is it a tenancy at will?
Oh yes, yes. No, it's a written lease. It's a written lease at term. And in fact, Howard, I don't know, you probably don't recall, we actually went through some of this in 2019. And we discussed the written lease, and there was some debate about should they provide the written leases or should it just be a condition of the permit? And ultimately, the board decided to just make it a condition of the permit because there was the possibility that if the business changed, they might have to fluctuate they might have to get more spaces, for example, or at that point in 2019, Baker certainly didn't anticipate the pandemic, and they didn't expect business to go the way it did.
Well, George, I guess what I'm getting at is that increased demand in the other spaces where these 29 offsite spaces exist, seems to me there's going to be pressure to take those spaces back. And I'm just inquiring about the type of written lease that exists. You said it's a year, short term. What's the nature? Can you elaborate, please?
So basically, there is a lease for some space in the adjacent building, and with that space, which basically goes unused, is the 29 parking spaces. So they are under a written lease, so they are locked up. So they're not subject to being used by other people.
Because my observation at the site, that the other lots are very busy. That looks like it's an office building that people park, and it seems congested. The other space,
I
as
think
is this lot.
I think it would help, even though the board in 19 may have said we don't need to look at the lease. I think it would be appropriate to get a redacted copy of the lease for what the space relates to, and from Howard's concerned, the duration of that lease.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can you tell us how long the lease runs?
I believe it was and I'd actually look to Rob Mueller to comment on this as well, because he's got more working knowledge of it. But I believe it might have been a 5-year with a 5-year renewal. No, maybe Rob's not on right now.
Looks like he's muted.
Yeah, George, I believe we submitted the lease in the first application. Am I wrong about that? It was the assignment of the lease from Baker's to Gordon's a couple months ago when we appeared before the board.
Yeah, we didn't actually provide it then.
Yeah.
pardon me, George, the space is approximately 4,500 square feet. And the 29 spaces, as you stated, accompany that lease and are part of that arrangement. And the 5 and 5 is what I understand as well, the 5 with the 5-year extension. And that's part of the 140 Gould lease with this 4,500 square feet and 29 spaces in the written lease arrangement.
So you have about 6 or 7 years left?
That's correct.
And refresh my memory, that Baker's decision says the permit lasts as long as you have that parking, or you'll have to get supplemental parking?
It says that the requirement to maintain 29 off-site spaces.
Okay. So I think it's still prudent to get us a copy of the lease, redact the rent, and so we can see the term and the scope of it. But what's the 4,500 square feet used? Any purpose?
We've used it for meeting rooms. We've used it for storage. We've used it for training and education. Just conferences, new hire meetings, interviews, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We threw you off track, George.
Yeah, that's it. All right. So in discussing the parking, so the current calculation comes up with a maximum of 57 spaces required. That is based, though, on two things. It's based, number one, on the Baker side with respect to their current numbers, which are significantly down. They're actually even below what they were when they first opened in 2006. And it also is based on the calculation per the bylaw for the Gordon's operation. And the reality is that the calculation under the bylaw for the Gordon's operation actually comes up with more spaces than there will likely ever be people in the building. So, the 57 required parking spaces as of right now is probably actually larger than what the actual demand would be. If Baker's business increases, it might be more accurate, but even with that, it's probably still a reasonable number to work with.
Can you talk about the timing of when do the Baker's employees generally come early and leave early?
Yeah, so generally the Baker's employees get there early, and they are all most of them are gone by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So during the, I guess most thing, there's no real customer traffic other than the limited amount of pickups that come as a part of Baker's takeout permit. So, and one of the reasons why Gordon's has decided to do the consultations after 3 o'clock is because it then does not conflict with the main chunk of the Baker's operation, and also doesn't conflict with their main part of the delivery aspect. So basically, once you get after 3 o'clock, there's not much traffic really at the site. And so that's the best time to actually have the general, when the public's coming in, when customers are coming in for consultations, that's going to be the best time for that.
And did you say that there would be only 4 delivery trucks?
Yes.
So are you going to have some kind of parking management plan to tell people to park in certain places?
Yeah, so the Gordon's business isn't going to add a lot, at least to begin with. It's not going to really add a lot of parking to it. As I indicated at the outset, Rob Mueller is going to stay on. He has been with Baker's for a while and is going to continue on with Baker's after after Gordon's acquires it. So he will help oversee, the Baker's for a long time has had a quite robust parking management kind of plan, and in that they have basically kept an eye on or been very interactive with their employees to find out who drives, who takes public transportation, providing incentives for employees to carpool or take public transportation. They run a shuttle to pick employees up at public transportation locations. and basically try and, do whatever they need to do to manage the parking. And I will say, since Baker's Best has been in this location in 2006, in 2019, when they came before the board for the expansion, they had at that point, at any given time, a maximum of like 85 people on premise. But in all the years, including 2017, 18, 19, there has not been, to my knowledge, a single complaint about parking. I know there were a couple of complaints a few years back with respect to noise from deliveries, early in the morning, but there's never been complaints about parking. And I think that is a testament to the robust parking plan that Baker's has managed over the years, and that parking plan will continue going forward. And added to that, another significant thing added to that is Gordon's will be instituting a work from home policy. So right now, Baker's employees do their work on site, but Gordon's will be basically allowing or encouraging employees to work from home off-site a certain number of days to help manage the parking and also to help manage the flow of people in the building. So there will be a continuation of the dynamic, robust parking management plan going forward. And this gets back to what I said. It's significant that Gordon's will own the property and will own both businesses. So it's not like it'll be a situation where you will have, where you could have two different businesses kind of operating at odds with each other. They will basically be in a position to manage parking and employee load and flow of the two businesses to make it work. And it's in their interest, obviously, to do that, because if it gets jammed up, then that's going to hurt both businesses.
George, can I ask a question about the hours of delivery and how that might work? It sounds like there's 4 delivery trucks of Gordon's that used to ship the wine, but how about the delivery? I know in the past hours of operation in the morning or at night, what hours are being proposed for the deliveries to the location?
All right, so incoming deliveries generally could track them the same as the Baker's current permit, which the Baker's permit is deliveries are allowed between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. And that would work for Gordon's as well.
Didn't we reduce the evening hours in 2019?
Not for deliveries, but it was, the trash pickup was reduced. So trash pickup, I think, previously went until 7 or 9 p.m., but trash pickup was reduced from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Can you address, and this is a Gordon's question, you called it vans loaded up and they're gone all day. What do those vehicles look like? And vans wouldn't last all day. Trucks might last all day. And where did the 4 trucks come from rather than 6 trucks or 10 trucks? Maybe Gordon, David, you can address the truck.
Sure. So they're Ford Transit vans, basically, and they're loaded up all day. They do last all day on a full tank of gas, and they'll do anywhere between 15 to 30 stops throughout the Metro West area.
And they're just one fill up and they're gone for the day. They don't come back.
We load them up in the morning. It's not like, the Baker's side of that operation is a little different because it's food and it has a very specific time it needs to get there. The Gordon side, you can load them up in the morning, send them out, and they can stay out all day. And it's the operation we're currently running in Waltham. We're out of space and it's terribly inefficient. So it's not something that's newer, necessarily unique. It's just becoming greatly more efficient with both the acquisition of the building and the Baker's business and the license.
And these vans will park on the property after hours at 3
Correct.
o'clock.
Correct. Yeah, and they park a couple in front of the building. The Baker's vans in front of the building. There's more than enough parking in the back of the building after hours for those vans to be stored.
George or Mr. Gordon, the acquisition of the building, are there any, I know I wasn't here in the August meeting, but Are there any renderings? Are there any plans to renovate the front? I mean, obviously, right now, the building looks more like a industrial kind of one-story place, and if it weren't for all the Baker's Best fans, you don't know what's really behind there. Is it gonna look and smell the same, or is it gonna change?
To be honest, I'm trying to just catch my breath at the moment with all this stuff going on. Personally, aesthetically, I think it does need to be upgraded. It needs paint. The awning needs to be changed. It does need the building needs some upgrades from an exterior perspective. I think you're right about that. Frankly, I'm not there yet.
I guess my specific question is it gonna look more like a liquor store than what it looks like now?
No, it will not. No, it will look like exactly how it looks now in terms of egress and going into a consultative sales office, basically.
Got it.
George, I wasn't there in August either, but just paging through the decision, there's a reference that under the license granted to Gordon's, delivery trucks will be restricted to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Is that a term of the liquor license?
George, I'll stop you. Regardless, we can adhere to that. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Peter, where that came from.
Okay.
It may have been from the selectman decision.
No.
Yeah, because the August, if it was in there, it might have been just a general discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
No, my understanding was it was in the liquor license granted by the
That's
select.
what I'm wondering. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. If it's a condition, if it is a condition of that, then obviously we have to comply with that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. If the board doesn't have further questions, we ought to see if there's anyone from the public.
There are no hands raised among the public.
Okay, so discussion among the board. I mean, I understand. I'm understanding that the consultation from the public and those retail sales would be only after 3 o'clock and only by appointment. And that we're limiting, the retail would be limited to 624 square feet.
So what is the hour of operation from 3 to what? Starts at 3, when does it end?
Oh, for the consultations, it's roughly 3 to 6. Although, you know, I wouldn't want a 6 o'clock hard limit if anything was going on the decision. I'd want maybe, 7 o'clock or something as a hard limit. But generally speaking, it's 3 to 6 is the hours
when they Monday through Saturday, George?
Yes.
Yes.
So I just want to pop in and say that I'm not going to participate on I recused myself from the last one. I thought the transaction had already gone through. So I think Peter or Nick should probably vote on this one. It just has no conflict with the Gordon family. It's a prior situation with the seller. So I'm not going to participate in this vote.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fine time to bring that up. I would have taken more notes.
So Peter or Nick should just step up.
So are there further questions, or are we ready to frame a motion?
The building inspector raised a couple of issues, John. Have you gone over all of those?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should go through the comments we have. I neglected to do. The planning board says that we should make sure that the relevant liquor license regulations with the selectmen have been met. Don't find that very illuminating. Because obviously they have to have a liquor license to do the operations.
Well, actually, John, I'm just wondering that this is somewhat of a novel approach, this consultative wine sharing and slipping and so on. Is that part contemplated in the liquor license, George?
Yes.
So the liquor license is not for, what, can you just explain a little bit more about the selectmen's grant of the license? What did they grant?
So I can't comment directly on that because I didn't handle that aspect. However, the application, basically the floor plans and the application packet to the selectmen, and what they voted on was basically the same packet that you have, with respect to a business that is going to be a warehouse distribution, sort of the largest part of the footprint, and then a small retail spot in the front for the consultation area.
Is that permit, I assume, renewed every year? What's the nature of that liquor permit?
Yes, liquor licenses are renewed on an annual basis through the selectmen. The process is you have to get approval from the select board first. It then gets sent to the ABCC, the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission. They review it. They have to green light it, and then it goes back to the select board. Then the select board actually issues the license, and then once issued, it gets renewed every year thereafter.
And do they have hours of operation in the license?
I don't believe they have hours of operation in the license. There are a set of general regulations that have sort of outside hours of operation, but I believe that's more expansive than what we're actually talking about with respect to this permit.
But that 3 to 7 would certainly work within the license permit as far as you know?
Yes.
Thank you, George.
All right, so the building inspector made a relatively long comment, much of which we've addressed. He says the proposal does not include any tasting events or the use of any other space in the building for that purpose. The application does not address hours of operations, but we have, or how shipping and receiving a product will be managed. I'd like to know the size of the commercial vehicles used in the operations and how they maneuver through the parking lot to the loading dock area. In the past, there have been complaints about late night deliveries. If the board grants the permit, have agreed hours of operations, including shipping and receiving, as part of the decision. Please also include the 624 space of retail space is a maximum limit, so it can be enforced if required in the future. This should also include trash removal facility, which has been a complaint in the past, but generally I do not have any issues with the concept. But the parking lot should be clearly striped for vehicles in loading areas and install required signage for accessible parking. Because that last point, it appears that there's no identified handicap parking, or is
there? There is.
Yeah, there is a designated handicap spot. I didn't specifically look at that space to see how well the paint is now, but so it may be that it needs a touch up or a fresh coat of paint on the lines and the designation. But there is a designated handicap spot in front of the building.
There are 2, George.
I think that we've addressed or will address in our decision the things the building inspector wants handled.
So, John, is this an amendment, a further amendment to the existing permits, or is this a new standalone permit?
I think it's an amendment, but
yeah.
I maybe proposed in 2019, we said, because it was getting confusion, that this supersedes all the prior permits. And I guess in my mind, I think it would make sense to, well, it's technically an amendment to kind of do a restated complete permit. So you can look to the 2022 permit and know what you're dealing with.
Well, only because there's a lot of stuff in the 2019 permit, about, dumpsters, hours and stuff like that, that if we're going to do a new standalone, we need to make sure we carry that stuff forward.
Yes, that's what at least that's my suggestion, but I think we'll just carry that forward, but write a new permit that supersedes what was there before.
And we'll have the 2019 and 2022 continue to apply to the baker's side of the operation?
Yeah, yes. I'm trying to see, do we have any other comments on this? My papers have gotten shuffled here. Daphne, do you know, do we have comments from the police, Public Works?
I'm sorry.
My papers have gotten shuffled. Do we have comments on the Gould Brothers application from?
Well, Public Works had no comments. The police's comment was the only concern the police would have would be regarding operations and impact on the neighbors. We have had issues in the past with noise early in the morning and later in the evening. I would be interested in understanding hours of operations, which I think we've addressed.
Right.
And then, of course, the standard health department.
Right.
No comments from the engineering.
No comment from engineering?
Correct.
All right, and we have no one from the public who wants to be heard, so I think we're ready to try to frame a motion, which we can try to do jointly, but maybe, Peter, I'll designate you to be the other voting member on this. You kind of knew, oh, you got time now.
Time on your hands. John, if I can start to frame the motion, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of input from everybody.
Go ahead.
Move that the applicant's request A for a special permit amendment under section 321 for a retail establishment serving the general public and containing 50 square feet more or less of floor area. B, special permit pursuant to 3.21 for a lawful purpose or special use not enumerated elsewhere in the zoning bylaw, which I believe was discussed, sort of this space, consultative space, I think is somewhat of an other permit, other use permitted under the use code with the special permit. C, a special permit pursuant to 321 for more than one non-residential use on a lot. D, a special permit pursuant to 5115, 512, and 513 for waivers of strict adherence to the parking numbers and parking plan and design requirements. Okay, so I think that's the motion. Now let's talk about some of the conditions. One, that the space used for consultative and meetings in the amount of 624 square feet be limited only to that space. That space, hours of operation, that's 624 square feet of Monday through Saturday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. That the use be by appointment only. Next is that the hours of delivery to the building be from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That trash pickup be from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. That the applicant produce a written signed copy of the lease for the 29 parking spaces on an adjacent facility. That that the parking lot be restriped to clearly show the parking for the vehicles and parking and loading zone areas. Those are the quick notes that I have. I'm sure, do other people have additional caveats that we want to incorporate by reference, the conditions from the 2019 and later decisions as well?
One Another condition that I'd like to put in is, if it's not objectionable, is that the delivery trucks will be parked behind the building at night.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with that. David, you all right with that?
That's no problem.
Yeah, and
Is this all the part, are these all the delivery trucks, Baker's Best and Gordon's?
No, Baker's has their own 4. Gordon's has
Okay.
4.
Or, so the,
I think there are only 7 spaces behind, so.
Yeah.
So they'll be parked behind the building to the extent there's space.
Yeah, I believe, and Rob can jump in here in terms of Baker's. I don't know if it was the board or whatever the circumstances were that wanted one of the trucks parked either in front of a loading dock or by the dumpsters at some point in time in front of the building. Rob, I don't know.
Dave, yes, no, absolutely. That's a great point, Dave. On our last special permit meeting in 2019, as we reassessed the mixed commercial and residential area and the sensitivity for deliveries, with some of our vendors like Coca-Cola having regular rotation in drivers, and concern that perhaps the vendors would not be abiding by the hours that we had mandated and communicated clearly with our sales associates. We were asked to block the loading dock delivery area each evening, kind of on a 45-degree angle with one of our vehicles. And the same thing was happening with our dumpsters to avoid any, effort to make a pre-authorized delivery or pickup. And then we put locks and so forth on the dumpsters to also address that. So is that something that probably, would you like us to continue to maintain that parking kind of blocking tactic, or just have all the vehicles in the back?
No, yes. So why don't we just say the Gordon Brother trucks will go behind?
That's fine.
Yeah, I don't think we required that, but that was something that Baker's Best was doing, and it seemed very practical and useful.
It's definitely worked, and I've been very, very well received by neighbors, I think, too.
Yeah. All right. So, are there any other conditions anyone can think of we need to put on?
No, Howard, the only thing I would say is I think the incoming delivery hours are 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. rather than the whatever it was in the Baker's thing.
So what was 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. and you're saying it should be what, Peter?
For this, it would be 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the Gordon side.
Well, let's stop a minute. Does that work for Baker's Best? I mean, that's apparently a requirement for liquor deliveries. But so, I'm not sure that works for the
it does work for both sides, actually, because of the ability, kind of the forced ability now to stagger deliveries throughout the morning. But in terms of the liquor side, we're able to schedule our vendors to come to deliver basically whenever we'd like. So after 10 a.m. is probably a better thing.
If I may, I from my perspective, from a zoning perspective, I would prefer to see you leave the bakers at 7 to 9 to provide flexibility, and then if you're going to condition, just limit the Gordon side, because then too, otherwise you've got all the deliveries getting forced to that window, the incoming deliveries, and I can see that might down the road cause a conflict or cause an issue. And so I think on one or the other, you need to have a little more flexibility. And where Baker's has had basically 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. as their delivery window for several years, I think, leave that in place and then limit the Gordons to the 10 to 2.
Yeah, frankly, I don't know why we're messing with Bakers in this decision. The 2019 decision for Bakers works fine. And they're not an applicant here. Their business isn't really the subject of the hearing. So
All right, so we'll just do this as an amendment.
yeah, I would just do this for Gordon. So. Okay.
And that's the motion.
I don't have any other conditions that.
Okay, so we have a motion made, and you seconded, Peter?
I do.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
It's been a long haul.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Good
Congratulations.
luck. Good luck. It's an interesting, ambitious plan.
Thank you, Howard.
All right, in terms of writing, I've done the other Baker's Best one, so I'm willing to do that. And Howard,
Excellent.
will you do the third car garage?
I'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
All right, and then the other, and let me see, John, would you do the approval of the ADU?
I will give it my best, although I am the third car garage guy, you know that.
We want to give you experience in other forums as well, John.
That's
You
right.
want to develop that
I wanna-
expertise.
I want to eliminate my expertise.
Now, John, you seem to have some strong opinions about this ADU, so I'm looking forward to reading that decision.
Yeah, it's a toughie.
All right. So anything
All right,
else
this is a lot of fun. Good night, all.
Well, we'll have two, I believe we have two ADUs for next month.
I'll be taking that month off, Howard.
Are there any breezeways? Are there any breezeways, Daphne, for next month?
I don't know. I have not seen the plans for these,
Look.
so.
Tempton has a conflict already.
Campaign to modify this ADU law.
Jonathan, I think we're together. We're out on the 17th, right? Getting donuts?
We're still waiting for those donuts.
Yeah,
Liquid
one of
donuts.
these days when we're in person.
Nick,
All right.
come by anytime with that bag of dunks. All right. Peter,
George,
congratulations.
this was a nice brief you wrote. Nice
Thank
job.
you.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
Peter.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, everyone.
Peter, I'm going to call you about retirement one day,
Bye-bye.
but I guess I won't be calling you at the office.
I was gonna say I'll be too busy. Yeah.
Me
All
too,
right.
Peter. I'm calling you about retirement.
All right, good night, everybody.
Take